Welcome everyone to episode 176 of Just Joshing. I am your host Joshua Pantellaresco. I write stuff in podcast 2. Today we conclude our conversation with Jonathan Lyster. And I am doing my best right now not to be jealous of the San Diego Comic-Con, which is always this week. This weekend, or one of the last weekends of July. I want to go back. I realize this week I want to go back, and I have a master plan in mind for this time next year. We'll see how it goes. I would love to actually do the event properly. I went there a few years back, and I only got to do 2 4 days. And I loved my time there. It was phenomenal. And I love San Diego as a city, but I'd like to actually be able to do something really cool next time. So hopefully I get that opportunity. But this week has been really cool. I attended an event on Thursday. I got to go to Raw Live Calgary, which is basically was a local artist show. It reminded me very much of Phoenix's First Friday, which was really, really cool. So a couple highlights for me. Meet someone I'm going to be hopefully interviewing today, which is she's like a phenomenal like prodigy, very similar to Mika DeLuey, which is going to be fun. Beyond that, I got to thank my last GoFundMe person that I could thank in person, and yeah, that felt good. That felt really, really good. Let me tell you. Like I told them, I always feel grateful for people that go out of their way to help me, and they were no exception. And it was cool to actually just meet and chat, which was really a lot of fun. Outside of that, I got a really cool event I'm going to literally today. Miranda Crocs is doing a writing workshop seminar at Loft 119 at 10 a.m. in Calgary. So if you want to learn some really cool writing stuff, performing stuff, I'm guessing, go check out Miranda. Miranda's awesome. You should definitely meet her and take the opportunity. All right, let's get to our conversation, shall we? So my favorite. I'll tell you my favorite scene in The Matrix. And this is when a movie works. I can tell you a bad example because Dark Knight Rises is the bad example of this. But the good example is The Matrix. So when he meets the Oracle, he goes, "You're waiting for something." He goes, "Like what?" "The next life, maybe. Who knows?" I go back to that scene and I just chuckle because that's it. That's the director going, "Ha!" right? You can tell it's the director going, "Ha!" A bad example of this was Dark Knight Rises, when Alfred talks about his vision for Bruce. Mm-hmm. When he said that vision for Bruce, right then and there, I only had one question left in that movie, is which girl he was going to end up with. I wasn't sure which one at the beginning of the movie. Whether it was going to be the executive or whether it was going to be Selena Kyle. I was not sure. Mm-hmm. But that was the only thing I was not sure about when that ended. And that's bad. When they give it away when it's that heavy-handed, yeah, right, you lose the tension. But when it's like a little thing, it's like, you know what, I'll just tell you the truth. Why the hell not? You won't believe it anyway. And then you come back to that and say, "Oh, you bastard."
I read a story by Walter John Williams years ago called, I believe it was City on Fire. And there is a scene in it where a character tells the main character, "This is what I'm going to do. A, B, C, D, E, and F." And then he disappears from the story. And stuff starts happening. And you get it from the main character's point of view. And she sees this stuff happening, and she has her own interpretation of it. And you get to the end of that, and she meets with that character again. Mm-hmm. And she says to him, "Why did you do all this?" And he says, "Well, I told you. I was going to do this, 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 and this." And at that moment, you think back and you go, "Oh, crap. That's exactly what he did."
Yeah, exactly.
It's just because our POV is from that character's perspective, we're only getting her, what she's immediately seeing,
yes,
and her interpretations of it.
Yeah.
And her interpretations work. They're absolutely correct for what she knows at that point.
But the thing is, that's the best part. Those are the best when they're not lying to you. That's actually when it really works. When it feels heavy-handed, it feels like a lie. It feels like, okay, I am going to take control of this narrative completely, and this is the ride. You're going to go on no matter what. Whereas the other way, it's like, this all might be true. It's like, you know what? I'm going to tell you the ending right now, because why not?
Yeah.
Right? But
that's all I'm going to give you. It's just a little piece of it. How we get there is the ride, and that's when it's fun.
A film that played with that was True Lies.
Yes.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
Where the villains have him tied up and they've dosed him with truth serum.
Yes.
And he explains to the guys who are standing guard what he's going to do. That, I'm going to pick up this scalpel and I'm going to stab you, and then I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that.
And it's so matter of fact. It's so matter of fact about it.
And they laugh it off.
And then he does it.
And then they're like, well, how are you going to do all that tied up? Oh, well, I'm not tied up. And then he just follows the program.
Yeah.
And it works because you've got that setup, and then there's the payoff. It's and because even though you can see it coming, you're kind of in the mindset of the guys who are listening to him. This guy's a babbling idiot. We've got him dosed up on truth serum. Don't take him seriously.
See, I looked at it that my interpretation was a little different. It's like, he's just so matter of fact about it. See, when someone's really matter of fact about something, you pause. Because it can be, you can say absolutely anything at that point. I am going to matter of factly just climb up this building and I'm going to try to fly. You laugh, and it's like I'm very deadpan serious. And they're like, okay, what the fuck's going on? And this is literally like, wait, no way is he doing this. and then, like, that's the thing. Like, first you laugh, and then you see like, oh, you're serious. Okay. And that's the thing, right? And once you recognize, like, when you can recognize that someone's serious, like even in like not fiction but real life, someone's deadpanning you seriously, that they are going to do something. Like, I don't bet again. Like, it's like, oh shit, okay. Sometimes it's like, how? And then now in real life I go, does it really matter how? And this is me in real life. It's like, does it really matter how they're that confident they're going to do it? So this is going to be the most spectacular failure I've ever going to see, or what they say they're going to follow through on. Right?
Yeah.
That's.
Somebody else becomes successful.
So that's how I took that. It's like, he's so matter of fact about this. He believes it.
Yeah.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough.
Put a sock on the door or something.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I've been quietly using it in times where you have not been there, so just been yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
Back at noon.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I won't be back there probably until like 4. So it's like all good.
Okay. Yeah, the last interview I've got is at 2.
Yeah. So
why? 3.
Yes. Yeah. No worries. Thanks for being so understanding.
Shall we go back?
We can go back. I think I'm going to keep this in the conversation just because it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're now walking down the hall back to the room.
Back to the room, the hidden room. Although straight up, I didn't realize you were such a film guy. I'm not. Don't think about it. I'm not entirely surprised, but
yeah, I don't know where that comes from, because I'm more of a reader than I am a movie person. But
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's been really cool because like some of the things like I think the thing is I think for me where it comes down to is because you're seeing storytelling on a visual level.
That is very true.
Yeah.
One of the things when I'm writing something,
yeah.
I will often, when I start getting a picture in my head of what a character looks like, I'll go on the internet and I will look for pictures that fit that character.
That's interesting.
Okay. So I end up with, it looks like a police dossier where, I'll have a photo of the character, and then I'll have information about, what they do for a living, who their family is, what kind of relationship they have with their family. But I'll have that picture. And one of the ironies about this was when my wife and I got the cover art for my latest novel, Judgment Days.
Yes.
The picture on the cover is of this young blonde man striding down the street, looking really confident, pistol in his hand, even though he's apparently just shot himself in the foot. So this was the cover picture, and I looked at it and I said, I like it, except it's wrong. The main character has dark hair. So we sent it back to the cover artist, and he did it with dark hair. And we didn't like it. We're like, it works better blonde. And I was saying to my wife, but you know, I've always pictured Seth as having dark hair. I mean, I've even got a picture of him. And then, you know, the light bulb went on. I said to my wife, I'm going to check on something. And I went through the manuscript, did a search for any mention of any description of Seth. In the book, there is absolutely no description of him having dark hair. There's nothing about him being blonde either, but there's no mention that he's got dark hair.
So there's the artist's interpretation.
Exactly. So this was the picture I'd always had of Seth, but there's no mention of that in the story. And I said to my wife, guess what? He's blonde. That's the way it's going to be. If the reader looks at the cover and when they get into the book, that's the picture they have in their head for the entire story.
I'm good with it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. No, but that's wise. I have my own interpretation of my own characters in my head. I have a very cowardly character named Johnny, and I have a redhead with a gun blade, right? And so everybody's got, I have my own interpretation of what that is, but somebody else is going to have a completely different interpretation.
Yeah.
And I'm okay, because you know what? One of the cool things about books, this is the difference between a book and a visual story, is books you can have any interpretation of any character you like. Right? Whatever's there is there, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's Kate Daniels, whether it's Randall Thor, the Wheel of Time, whether it's your character, right?
Seth.
Mr. Seth, right? Whether Mr. Seth shows up and whether he's blonde, I could make him have orange hair, freckles, and maybe fuchsia eyes. Why? Because why not, right?
I don't know if you've seen the original movie, The Manchurian Candidate.
I haven't seen the original, no.
Okay. There is, well, the premise of the film is these soldiers were captured basically by people from Manchuria, and they were interrogated and possibly tortured and put through this mind control program. And one of the kind of shared fantasies that they were put into was that they were at this dinner party. And so they all remember these women sitting around chatting while one of them is doing something with his hands. And it turns out that what he was doing was turning over these cards, because the program that he's been given is triggered by, it's like the Queen of Hearts. So whenever he sees that, he's put into the suggestive mode that they can then feed him something to do, like go off and kill your girlfriend kind of thing, which he does. But all of them have this kind of shared fantasy that was part of the programming that they all received. And so they all picture these Southern women at this tea party that they're part of. One of the soldiers was black. And when he recalls the tea party, all of the women are black. And for the other soldiers who were in this, who were captured as well, they're all white. And that was such a nice touch, because it was absolutely true to the way his character would see things.
Yes.
You know, I mean, one of the really frustrating arguments in writing is where, for white people, we tend to assume that white is the default. So it can kick It can. I mean, there are plenty of racists out there who get into towering arguments about this when arguing about using non-white characters, and it gets really ridiculous when you have a story such as The Hunger Games, where they make a movie out of it, and they have the character of Rue, who is black, and there are plenty of audience members who see the movie and think, wait, that's wrong. Rue isn't black. Rue is this little blonde angelic character. Even though in the book she's described as having chocolate brown skin.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was such a joke on Twitter for a while that there were a whole bunch of racist white people who objected to a black actress playing a black character. Like, what?
Well, see, I think, yeah, there's a lot of assumptions we make. For example, white's the default. I think in English. The world doesn't think in English.
Exactly.
Right? The world thinks in Chinese, French, Spanish, Maltese, Italian, Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The fact is everybody thinks differently. Everybody sees things differently, and as a result, like, I can't properly. I can write about in general terms, maybe what a Japanese man or woman would think. General terms, maybe very, very general terms. The nuances, the details there, I don't pretend to know.
Yeah.
Right? I couldn't do it because I don't have that experience, right?
Yeah.
Now, someone that maybe has been in the culture for a while, they could do it, or at least would do a better facsimile than I could, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, because my grandmother's Maltese, I could do a Maltese household big time because I know what that is, right? Because I grew up in that, and that's the thing, right? So, what I do is as far as readers go, well, even my series like The Watcher, all right, one of the things that my artist brought up is how would different cultures interact in this kind of world, and we were talking all of them, and she brought up some really good points. It was like, okay, so let's reimagine this character and this character. How would you like Kristen was the one that went through the biggest changes. Like, how would you see her? Because I had a certain default mode, but my hers was right. You know what? That wouldn't be the case. It would be more of either a hybrid of different cultures, or it would be, or who's to say that one particular culture would be dominant? Maybe just they all got captured. They all and that they're just in this community.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's good. Like, you have to keep an open mind of how everyone sees things.
Yeah.
And
Someone that I was quite impressed with for how he handles a cast of characters that are multiracial. That's Robert J. Sawyer.
yes,
He's
very good at that. Actually.
in his novel Triggers. He's got an Indian character. He's got a black character. He's got characters he's got all kinds of characters who are non-white. But he makes a point of, if he's going to say this character is black, he will tell you that this other character is white. He will make a point of saying, I'm not going to treat white as the default. Because you know what? For that black character, white is not the default.
Yep.
For the Chinese character, white is not the default.
Yeah.
You know.
And Rob is interesting. He's very conscious with his decisions in all his books.
Mm-hmm.
And I've interviewed Rob, so I have a bit of an idea how he thinks. And not going to pretend I know everything how he thinks, but I know when he writes something, he's very deliberate, and that's actually what makes his stuff work.
Yeah.
And there's a certain. I told him this in person. He's the closest thing to Asimov we have today. You're right. They're not quite the same, but they're very, very close. Mm-hmm. And Asimov did the same thing. He's very deliberate in his sensibilities. And as long as you're deliberate about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You can be surprised by someone else's interpretation of your work. But you've got a problem with your writing if someone opens your story and says, why did you choose that word, or why did you explain or describe the scene this way? If you don't have an answer for that, you need to look harder at your own work. Because it's as what's his name? I think it was Bruce Wayne, but not Bruce Wayne. Mark Twain. Mark Twain. They're very different people, Mark Twain and Bruce Wayne.
One's like Dracula and one's Mark Twain.
What Mark Twain. I said Bruce Wayne. I can't believe I said
that's definitely staying in the podcast, by the way. I'm not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. What Mark Twain said was, picking the right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug.
Yep.
Just the sheer level of intensity. And as you know, when you're crafting that sentence or that paragraph and you express something in just the right way, it body slams you. And you go, oh, that is cool. And it's not because, you're in love with the particular phrase, or, oh, I finally got to use my favorite expression in my story, go me. No, it's because suddenly you've got the words that, in this particular scene with these particular characters, that is the perfect way of getting that thought across. And, I've said to writers groups that I've been involved with, and I'm involved with a spectacular group in Parksville right now where I live, that there are scenes that I've written that I've struggled with, and I've gone over them and over them and over them. And as I've got more experience, I've come to realize that if I'm struggling with how to make a scene work, that scene probably doesn't deserve to live.
Yeah.
So what I do is I go through that scene and I'll say to myself, the reason I'm so stuck on making this scene work is there's something in it that is vital to the story. And I need to find out what that is and keep that. The rest can go. So I'll have a 4-page scene, for example, and I'll go through and I'll hit that one bit and it'll be like, that is the telling detail that this scene needs to convey. And the scene will go, and that thought, that element, will go into a line of dialogue or a line of description, and it'll have that punch because it doesn't have all this other clutter around it. It'll have that punch. And then I can get rid of the rest of the scene and on to the next bit.
Yep.
But 99% of the time, if I find a scene just isn't working, that's because it's telling me I'm in the wrong story.
Yes.
Take me out. Don't throw me away necessarily. I might be useful somewhere else.
Or even later on in the same story.
Yeah.
Possibly. I did a story consultation with somebody. He was trying to get this scene. He goes, how would you make that work? And I listened to the scene for a minute. I was like, you can't make this work right here. This is why. Your character's like this. This would be this should be their reaction. And it would lead to this. Mm-hmm. So there's no way around that right now. And as far as your other character goes, there's no way you can garner any sympathy for that character at this point in time. You need to build that sympathy up first before you do this. And if you want that particular character, to have anything like sort of redemption, otherwise, that character's just the bad guy. Your main character is justified in what they're doing and will take any consequences as a result of this. And he thought about that for a minute. It's like, you're right. It's like, yeah, you can't do this right now.
Yeah.
You just can't, right? You have to wait and see about what you have to wait for this. Now you can do this in the same story. Like later on, it might work, but right here, it doesn't.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It does not work. And I'm telling you this now. You put this in there, I'm going to just shrug my shoulders. Like, what's going to happen? It's like, you will completely discredit your own story if you put it in right here. It's like, And then he paused and thought about this, and he's like, yeah, okay, I think you're right. I hate hearing that you're right, because I really wanted that scene, but it's just like that's the truth, right? So we have gone for quite a while. We've had an adventure outside, inside, talked movies, and Bruce Wayne made his appearance at the very end here.
If I encounter your listeners in future, I am never going to live that down.
No. At this point, no. See, it's even better. See, it's going to eventually go on my YouTube archive. It will live forever.
Jonathan Sean Lyster once mistakenly referred to Mark Twain as Bruce Wayne.
Actually, you want to make that actually sound awesome? Jonathan Lyster once accidentally referenced Mark Twain as Batman, because Mark Twain is Batman. See, that's how you do it. That's your defense.
Yeah, but now because the writer brain kind of goes. Now I'm thinking, okay, alternate world. Bruce Wayne. Now I'm flipping it around, but Mark Twain somehow, back in his era, becomes Batman.
Yes.
And where do we go with that?
Oh, that's simple. He becomes a pioneer of the Underground Railroad, and what he does is and because of his public persona as the great Sam Clemens, because that's who Mark Twain really was, he cannot publicly fight this because he knows that this isn't the right time or the right place to do that. But what he can do is he can help send people to Canada. So he dresses up like a bat and he rescues the slaves and goes off. Dear God.
There's the story in this.
Dear
yes.
God.
Yes. And now there are legions of graphic artists out there who are just going, oh, I can draw that. That's going to be cool.
Samuel Clemens is Batman. Oh, God. I'm going to pitch it to DC. What the fuck?
Do it.
Yes. So anyway, we've had a good interview. Talk about your latest book, what it's about, and how can we get a hold of you.
My latest book is called Judgment Days. It's the first of a series called Armageddon Boys. And the premise of it is that God has decided it's time for the second coming, and so he has sired the Messiah. Except things go somewhat wrong, and he ends up siring lots of Messiahs. So they don't all have, they're not all in agreement on how to properly end the world. In fact, Seth thinks the world is entirely fine as it is. So when someone starts bumping off his half-brothers, he decides this could trigger Armageddon. So I'm going to find whoever's doing this and I'm going to stop them. Now, Seth is a bookstore clerk, so he really doesn't know what he's doing. He often forgets to load his gun. However, he does have certain talents going for him. For example, he can turn water into wine or into a spectacular cup of coffee, Sumatran with a pinch of cream. And twice he's resurrected his dead cat, because his dead cat isn't brightest and keeps wandering off into traffic. So he can raise the dead, and he can heal the sick, and he can turn water into coffee. So with those credentials, he's decided that he's going to go out and find the killers and bring them to justice.
That sounds. I have so many questions. So the interview has to end at this point. So, how can people find you?
I'm on Amazon. The book isn't out quite yet. We're bringing it out in mid-July.
Okay.
We're going to have it set up for pre-orders this coming week.
Okay.
And you'll be able to find the first of the series in mid-July, and the second one, called The Frog of War, comes out in November. And the series is not going to be all about Seth. Seth is one of the point of view characters in the first one, and he is a walk-on character in the second one. the POV character. He's not one of the POV characters in that. That is another character, Chase, who is like Seth, one of the sons of God, only he's only just recently discovered that he's one of the sons of God. So that novel begins with him trying to walk on water in his bathtub. So, because he figures, from what I've learned about myself and my real father, I should be able to do this.
Oh, and he picked the bathtub because he can't fall that far.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes. I gotcha. All right.
And that was my conversation with Jonathan Lyster. A couple things I gotta just mention here while I pull this together here. Yes, this is something I am going to pitch to DC, because why the heck not? Samuel Clemens as Batman rules. It just rules. There's no ifs, there's no ands, there's no buts. It just absolutely rules. So DC, if you're listening, I totally would do it. I would absolutely 100% do the thing. I gotta do a little small thank you here, because if I don't, I think he might be me. Andres, thank you for being so understanding and patient with me, because you didn't have to be, and I appreciate it. So Jonathan Slay's book is Judgment Days, The Armageddon Boys, Book 1. You should definitely check it out. I want to thank Jonathan for being part of the show. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. So, you can do a few things if you want to support this podcast. You can listen to this podcast, subscribe to this podcast, and do so through iTunes, my YouTube channel, Joshua Penteloresco, or, you can do it through any of the other subsequent players that carry the podcast. If you like it, leave a review. That'd be great. I have books. The Watcher, Storm Dancer, The Wandering God, Courtesy of Mirror World Publishing. You can get them wherever brick and mortar stores sell books, or you can do it electronically through Amazon, Kobo, however you'd like to do that. You can vote for this podcast for Best Fan-Related Work for the Aurora Awards. Go to the Canadian Science Fiction and Fantasy website right now. Buy $10. Buy a package. You get to read some amazing content from all the nominees, and you get to listen to this podcast as well. And even if not, thank you very much for listening. Stay inspired, live a little crazy, dream with your eyes wide open, and I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Josh.